Redridge was the kind of town where trouble didn't last long, and secrets rarely made it past Sunday service, until the day Emily Garner vanished. It started like any other Wednesday. The late autumn air carried the scent of burning leaves, and children filed out of Redridge Elementary, with backpacks bouncing and lunchboxes dragging behind them. 10-year-old Emily was one of the last to leave. She waved goodbye to her teacher, stuffed her drawing into her backpack, and began the half-mile walk home. She never made it. By 3:45 p.m., her mother Lila was pacing the front porch. By 4:30, she was calling everyone she knew. At 5:12 p.m., she dialed 911. Within the hour, search teams had been mobilized. Flashlights swept through the creek beds. Neighbors combed the wooded areas. The sheriff assured the press, "We're treating this with full urgency." Deputy Claire Monroe didn't wait for orders. She was already loading up her partner, Ranger, a 6-year-old canine German shepherd with a reputation for success, even in the worst of cases. Lila met Claire at the front door, eyes swollen and hands trembling. She handed over Emily's scarf. "She wore this today. She said it made her feel brave." Claire nodded and knelt beside Ranger. "Take it in, boy. You know what to do." Ranger sniffed, then snapped to attention. With a short bark, he bolted forward, nose low, paws flying. Claire followed close behind, her boots crunching fallen leaves. As the light faded, Ranger's path became erratic, through a picket fence down the edge of Maple Creek, past the shuttered sawmill. Then he stopped. Dead ahead, behind a collapsed fence and tangle of brush, sat the old ranger station, a place most of Redridge had forgotten or chosen to. After the wildfire 10 years ago, it had been condemned, sealed off, and left to rot. A quiet warning for kids to stay away. But Ranger's ears perked. He growled. Claire raised her flashlight and stepped. Inside, dust coated every surface, shattered glass crunched beneath her boots. Dead leaves littered the floor like confetti from some long-forgotten celebration. Ranger sniffed intensely, weaving past rusted filing cabinets and broken lockers. He halted at a door with a snapped handle. Claire forced it open with her shoulder and froze. Inside was a child's blue sneaker, tiny, new, next to it a candy wrapper. Claire crouched. "Emily?" It wasn't just that the items were there. It was how they were placed, dropped hurriedly, like someone had grabbed her. Claire radioed it in. Possible evidence at the old ranger station, child's belongings located, requesting full team to investigate. Static. Then Sheriff Nolan's voice crackled back. "Copy that, but avoid the cliffs. Those trails aren't safe after dark." Claire frowned. She may have been taken that way. "Claire, that's a dangerous zone. Focus on the marked trails. Leave the cliffs for daylight. The line cut." Claire bit her lip. Why avoid the cliffs now when time was everything? Suddenly Ranger barked again, loud, urgent. He was at the back of the station, scratching wildly at a boarded window. Claire ran over. Outside was a narrow path, almost invisible, leading downhill toward the cliffs, Sunset Cliff. Ranger leapt through the broken window before Claire could stop him. She followed. They reached the edge of the cliff. The wind howled across the rocks, and Claire could see for miles over the tree canopy. But Ranger wasn't interested in the view. He barked furiously at a patch of dirt, pouring at the earth. Claire knelt and gasped, Emily's backpack, half buried, torn, and beside it a single boot print larger than any child's, deep, fresh. Claire's pulse thundered. Someone had been here. Someone with Emily. And they'd gone further, beyond the trail, past the edge of the town's memory. She looked down at Ranger, who stood rigid, tail low, gaze locked on the trees below the cliff. Claire didn't know it yet, but what Ranger was sensing wasn't just a trail, it was a secret, one the town had buried decades ago, and they'd just scratched the surface. The next morning, Claire Monroe stared at the cliff's edge like it might answer her questions if she waited long enough. The early sun hit the rocks in bands of orange and pink, but there was no beauty in it, not today. She crouched beside the shallow hole where Ranger had found Emily's backpack. It was real, not imagined, not a misunderstanding. And that boot print, deep, wide, unmistakably adult, was still clear in the dirt. Yet when she reported it, the response from Sheriff Nolan was measured to the point of being suspicious. "We'll send a crew later," he'd said. "Stick to the map trails for now. Don't go poking around past Sunset Cliff. Too dangerous. You know how the old tunnels down there flood and collapse." Claire had grown up in Redridge. She knew the local folklore, talk of unstable caves, forgotten trails, and bad luck zones. But this wasn't superstition. A girl was missing. Her belongings were found outside the search grid. Something was being ignored. Or worse, intentionally avoided. She stood and looked down at Ranger, who was sniffing again, tail rigid. Then he gave a small whine and paced toward a thicket of dry shrubs along the cliff's edge. Claire followed, brushing branches aside, and saw what had caught his attention. A narrow, overgrown footpath descending sharply into the ravine. It wasn't on any town map. She didn't remember it from her youth. It was like it had been erased. She called it in anyway. "Monroe here. I've found an old trail heading below Sunset Cliff. Looks like someone's been through recently. Requesting a backup team. Static." Then Nolan's voice. "Negative, Monroe. That trail is off limits. We've had landslides down there." Claire's grip on the radio tightened. "Sheriff, I found Emily's backpack up here. Someone brought her this way. I'm going down." "Stand down, deputy. That's an order." Claire looked at Ranger. His ears twitched, eyes locked on the dark path below. She clicked the radio off. "Come on, boy. Let's go." They moved slowly down the hidden trail, carefully testing each step. Ranger led with certainty, pausing only to sniff the dirt where faint boot imprints were still visible. The deeper they went, the colder the air grew, the sounds of the town above fading into silence. About 30 minutes in, the path opened into a small rocky clearing, and there it was, a steel hatch embedded into the ground, half covered with moss and dirt, like something out of a forgotten war bunker. It had no visible lock, just a rusted handle and strange faded markings around its rim. Ranger began circling it, barking, sharp, low, anxious. Claire felt her heart pounding. She knelt beside the hatch, brushing away dirt and debris. The word Haven was etched across the metal in faint scratched lettering. She hesitated, then gripped the handle and pulled. The hatch creaked open with a moaning hiss of escaping air. A wave of cold, metallic-smelling air rose up. Ranger growled, but didn't back away. Claire pointed her flashlight down into the darkness. A narrow staircase spiraled below, swallowed by shadows. She turned on her body cam, clipped it to her, fast and drew her sidearm. "Stay close," she told Ranger. Step by cautious step they descended. The walls were lined with cracked tile and decaying insulation. Faint traces of old paint clung to signs in red lettering, long faded. They reached a landing. Claire's flashlight caught something in its beam. A child's drawing, pinned to the wall with a rusted nail. Stick figures, a son, a dog, and the name Emily scribbled underneath. Claire's breath caught. This wasn't just a hiding place, it was holding something or someone. She moved deeper. Then from the end of the corridor, a faint noise, a soft scrape, a whisper. Claire froze. Ranger bristled, growling low. Someone else was down here, watching, waiting. Claire's flashlight trembled in her grip. The narrow corridor ahead breathed a low, steady hum, like a machine long dormant, but not dead. Somewhere inside the decaying walls, something still pulsed, ticking like a heartbeat. Ranger stiffened, his growl turning into a low snarl. Claire reached for her sidearm, careful not to make sudden noise. "Easy, boy," she whispered. "We don't know what we're walking into." The soft scraping echoed again, this time from the left, behind. A metal door marked Storage C. Claire approached it cautiously. The label was faded and rust had eaten through its hinges. She pressed her ear against it. Nothing. With a slow push, the door creaked open. Her flashlight swept across the room. Dust floated thick in the air. Inside were abandoned shelves with scattered files, overturned furniture, and a line of old medical stretchers. Along one wall was a shattered mirror and torn restraints. In the far corner, something moved. "Who's there?" Claire called out. Silence. Then, from behind a broken file cabinet, a gaunt figure stepped into view. A teenage boy, thin, pale, with shaggy hair and dark circles under his eyes. His clothes hung loose, his feet bare. He held his hands up quickly. Don't shoot, please, I'm not one of them. Claire kept her weapon trained. One of who? The boy swallowed hard. The ones that run this place. I'm Luke. I've been hiding down here for days. Maybe longer. I lost track. Claire's mind raced. Were you taken like Emily Garner? His eyes widened. Emily? The girl? They have her. Ranger barked. Claire stepped closer. Where? Luke turned and pointed back through the hallway. Deeper. Past the test wing. They moved her last night. I tried to stop them, but there were too many. They wear these black suits, masks. They don't talk. Just inject and carry. Claire's skin prickled. Inject what? I don't know, Luke whispered. When they injected me, everything turned white, then black. I woke up in a cage. Claire's grip tightened. How did you escape? Luke's expression darkened. They thought I was dead. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Claire asked, What is this place? Luke hesitated, then nodded toward the hallway. You should see it yourself. She followed him through a maze of corridors, Ranger constantly sniffing ahead, ears perked. The deeper they went, the more unnatural it felt. Paintings made by children lined the walls, stick figures with big smiles, but all drawn in the same stiff, anxious way. Beneath the paint were thin outlines of something older, diagrams, labels, words like Phase 2 and serum intake. They passed a heavy steel door. On it, Claire noticed claw marks, human ones. Beyond it was what Luke called the chamber. It looked like an abandoned laboratory, white tile floors cracked and peeling, steel tables stained dark with age. Claire's flashlight found cells, small human-sized cages with rusted locks. Inside one was a small blanket, a water bottle and a set of children's plastic beads. Claire felt bile rise in her throat. This is where they kept us, Luke said quietly. Me, others. We didn't know why, just tests, monitoring. Sometimes they took us upstairs. Sometimes they didn't bring kids back. She turned to him. How long ago? Years, Luke muttered. They shut it down, or so they said. But recently, someone reopened it. Fewer staff, fewer kids. Just enough to not get caught, but I think they were testing something else this time. Claire's head spun. Government? Private contractors? Was Nolan involved? She moved to the last cell and froze. Hanging on a hook was Emily's red jacket. Claire's voice broke. She was here. Luke nodded grimly. And if they moved her, we have to hurry. A sudden metallic clang echoed from the corridor behind them, the unmistakable sound of a closing gate. Ranger barked furiously. They weren't alone anymore. The clang of metal echoed like thunder through the bunker. Claire spun around, weapon raised. Ranger stood braced, teeth bared and eyes fixed down the corridor they had just come from. Gate just closed, she said under her breath. We're sealed in. Luke's voice was shaky. That means they know we're down here. Claire nodded once. Then we move, now. Ranger took the lead again, his instincts razor sharp. The deeper they went, the more the air changed, colder, thicker, laced with a chemical sting. They passed a darkened room labeled Observation Bay. Through its broken window, Claire saw a row of reclining chairs fitted with metal restraints. Above each was a flickering monitor, displaying looping footage of forests, schools, playgrounds, scenes clearly meant for children. Luke turned his head away, voice dry. They called. It induced dream programming. Claire clenched her jaw. What kind of monsters? A hiss stopped her mid-sentence. From a side door, a figure emerged, tall, faceless under a black mask, dressed in a synthetic suit that looked more military than medical. The figure didn't flinch. No weapon. Just a steady, chilling walk forward. Claire shouted, "Stop right there!" The figure didn't. She fired a warning shot. Still nothing. Then another door opened, and another figure stepped out. Ranger lunged, snarling, planting himself between them and the path forward. The masked figures moved slowly without urgency. Too calm. Claire grabbed Luke. We're not fighting our way out. Come on. She ducked into a narrow hall marked Maintenance Access, Restricted. Pipes lined the walls and water dripped from a cracked valve. Ranger barked sharply and took off to the left. Claire and Luke sprinted after him. "I think this leads out," Luke shouted. "They never used these tunnels. It's how I escaped the first time." They passed power panels with broken wiring, doors fused shut by age and corrosion. Just as they reached a fork, Claire's flashlight flickered. The beam stuttered, dimmed, then went out. Dead. She smacked it. Nothing. "Hold on. My phone," she said, fumbling for the flashlight app. But just as she lit the path, a low voice echoed through the tunnel. "You shouldn't have come here, Deputy Monroe." Claire froze. That voice, too familiar. It came from ahead, not behind. And as she slowly stepped into the junction, her light caught the last thing she expected. Sheriff Nolan, standing at the far end of the corridor, hands clasped, expression calm. He wasn't in uniform. He wore a dark vest and boots. Air radio sat clipped to his chest and he held a clipboard, like he was running inventory, not a rescue. Luke cursed under his breath. "I knew it." Claire's voice was ice. "You're part of this." Nolan didn't flinch. "You're too." "Smart for your own good, Claire, you always were. Should have stayed on the safe side of the tape. You knew about the children." "I did more than know," he said, stepping forward. "I protected this town from a truth it couldn't handle, and in return it stayed peaceful, funded, untouched." Claire stepped forward, gun still raised. "And what do you tell the parents, the kids who never came back?" "I told them what they needed to hear," Nolan said flatly. "That they wandered off, that accidents happen. People want easy answers. They never wanted to know what lived under their town." Claire's finger hovered over the trigger. "Where's Emily?" she demanded. "She's still alive." Nolan replied. "For now. She's special, more than you know. They're watching her closely. They say she's showing reactions none of the others did." Claire didn't understand. Reactions to what? Nolan smiled faintly. "She's unlocking something. The program was just dormant, Claire, not gone." Suddenly alarms blared through the tunnels. Red lights flashed. A voice over the intercom. "Containment breach. Section 9 compromised. Emergency." Lockdown initiated. Nolan's eyes widened. Claire saw it in that moment. He wasn't in control anymore. Whatever they had built down here, it had just woken up. The red warning lights bathed the corridor in a pulsing crimson glow. Alarms screeched through the tunnel walls, bouncing off the rusted pipes like cries from a dying beast. The bunker groaned. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Claire didn't. "Wait, Nolan, move," she barked. But the sheriff stood frozen, lips parted in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. They said the girl was stable." Claire grabbed Luke's arm and shoved past him. "Ranger, go!" The K-9 launched forward, leading them deeper into the maze. Behind them, Nolan yelled something incoherent, but Claire didn't look back. At the next junction, they passed a shattered window, looking into what appeared to be a sealed observation chamber. Inside was chaos. Panels flashing erratically, sparks flying from a control board. Two black-suited figures lay motionless on the floor, masks cracked, unmoving. In the center of the chamber sat Emily. She was strapped into a chair, wires and nodes stuck to her head and chest. Her eyes were wide open, but glowing faintly blue. Claire slammed her hand against the glass. "Emily!" No response. The door to the chamber was locked, electronically sealed with a keypad. Luke pushed beside her, scanning the controls. "We can override this, maybe. It's an emergency protocol. They never thought someone would want to get in." Claire turned to him. "Do it." Ranger barked wildly, pacing the hallway as more doors slammed shut in sequence, one by one, inching closer to trapping them all. Claire looked back through the glass. Emily's body was trembling slightly. Her fingers twitched and the chair's metal frame was beginning to spark. "She's doing this," Claire murmured. "Somehow. She's triggering the system." Luke worked furiously, hands shaking. The files, they called her Subject Theta. Her brainwaves were different, reactive. She was never supposed to be exposed to full sensory sync. But they pushed it anyway. Claire stared through the glass as Emily's eyes turned toward her, still glowing, still locked on. Then, the lights exploded. Sparks rained down. The keypad screen went black. For a second, everything stopped. The alarms, the flashing, even the distant grinding of lockdown doors. Then the metal door creaked open on its own. Claire didn't hesitate. She rushed in, pulling off the straps from Emily's arms and legs. The girl was warm to the touch, but her body trembled like she'd run through fire. "Emily, you're okay. I'm taking you home." The girl blinked, her lips parted. One word came out, barely above a whisper. "Underneath." Claire froze. "What do you mean?" Emily looked up at her, and for the first time tears began to form in her glowing eyes. "There are more. Underneath. Still there. Still alive." Claire's stomach dropped. Behind her, Luke stepped in, pale. "She's right. The holding tunnels, they never cleared them out. They left the kids that didn't respond to testing, sedated, or worse." "We have to open them," Claire said. Before Luke could respond, a mechanical growl echoed from deeper within the bunker. This one was different, metal grinding on metal. Something big was powering up. The walls began to vibrate. Then came the voice over the loudspeaker again, but distorted this time, glitched. "Subject Theta has breached behavioral bounds, initiating extraction protocol." A rumble shook the floor. Ranger barked furiously, standing protectively in front of Emily. Claire looked at the girl. "Do you know what they're going to send?" Emily nodded slowly. Her answer chilled Claire to the bone. "They built it for war." The floor thudded again, twice this time, like heavy footsteps echoing from beneath the concrete. Claire pulled. Emily close, her voice low and urgent. "We're leaving now." Luke looked ready to bolt. "You don't understand. If extraction protocol is active, we're not just up against guards anymore. They've unleashed it. The thing they built, it's alive." Claire stared at him. "You said it was a weapon." He nodded, sweating. "It was part of the Cold Shadow Initiative. Weaponized cognition. They wanted to turn kids into keys to control it. But Subject Theta, Emily, was the only one who responded. They designed that thing to follow brainwave triggers. If she's awake, it's awake too." From the far corridor, metal groaned violently. Ranger barked furiously, pacing toward the entrance. Claire steadied herself, guiding Emily forward while Luke grabbed a discarded security baton from the floor. They moved fast, Claire gripping her weapon tight, Emily's thin legs struggling to keep up. As they reached the hallway junction, the ceiling above cracked. Just once. Then something punched. Through it. A long black arm, insect-like and mechanical, snaked through the concrete and swung wildly. At its end was a jagged claw-like hand that sparked with raw energy. Claire fired instinctively. The bullets hit, but the arm recoiled only slightly, like swatting a fly. Luke yelled, "Go! Maintenance hatch! That way!" They sprinted down a firewall side tunnel as the wall behind them caved in. More limbs were emerging, too many for one body. Claire looked back for just a second and caught a glimpse of its full form through the rubble. It was massive. Its body was humanoid, but impossibly tall, maybe 9 feet. Its chest was plated with armor, veins of glowing blue running across it like lightning beneath skin. But its face, if it had one, was masked by a smooth black dome with no eyes, no mouth, just one pulsating circle of light at its center. It didn't move with chaos. It moved with purpose. And it was headed straight for Emily. Claire kicked open a panel Luke pointed out, revealing a service tunnel barely wide enough to crawl through. She shoved Emily inside, then followed with Ranger. Luke came last, jamming a pipe into the panel to wedge it shut behind them. The tunnel was damp, the mire. Air thick. Somewhere above, alarms still rang, but down here everything felt muffled. They crawled for 10 tense minutes until they reached a hatch that opened into a lower holding chamber. Luke pulled a dusty chart off the wall and pointed. "We're here, there's another exit 2 levels down. If we can cut across the specimen hall." Emily suddenly gasped. She was staring at a door marked Sub-Level C, Containment. Claire followed her gaze. "Is that where they are?" Emily nodded. "Yes, they're still in there. Some of them can't move. Some forgot how." Luke whispered. "She means the other kids. The discarded ones." Claire's chest tightened. "We can't leave them." Luke looked at her, shocked. "You can't free them." We don't even know how bad it is in there. What if they're unstable? What if they're children? Claire snapped. And if we don't, we're no better than the people who did this. Suddenly, Ranger growled. From behind them, the tunnel walls began to vibrate again. It was coming. Emily stepped forward, her voice steady. I can stop it. Claire crouched beside her. What do you mean? I can talk to it, she said. Just not forever. Claire stared into her glowing eyes. You're not going alone. Emily touched Claire's hand. I won't be. You'll bring the others. I'll hold it back. Before Claire could argue, Emily turned toward the containment. Doran placed her hand on the scanner. A soft chime, then the locks hissed open. Inside, the darkness stirred, and from deep within came voices. The containment door slid open with a grinding hiss, revealing a cavernous room cloaked in shadows. Claire's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing rows of small empty beds, some with tangled sheets, others overturned, as if abandoned. In a hurry. The air smelled of damp earth and antiseptic. Emily stepped inside, her glowing eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity. Ranger followed closely, ears perked, growling low. Suddenly, from the far corner of the chamber, a faint whispering began so soft Claire barely heard it. Help us. Luke swallowed hard. They're alive. Slowly, figures began to emerge from the shadows. Children, thin and pale, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Some shuffled forward, others remained frozen in place, rocking gently. Emily moved to them, reaching out a trembling hand. It's okay, we're here now. One boy stepped forward, a frail child with hollow cheeks and tangled hair. His voice was barely audible. Where have you been? Emily's voice cracked. I was trapped too. But I'm free now. We're going to get out. Claire watched, heart pounding. The children's faces flickered between hope and terror. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. The massive creature was close, closer than they thought. Emily's hand shot up. Stop! The room fell silent. Claire saw a strange calm settle over the children as Emily closed her eyes, whispering words too faint to hear. The blue glow from her eyes pulsed steadily. Then the doors slammed shut behind them. Claire spun around to see the massive black dome of the creature blocking the exit. Its glowing central eye scanned the room, narrowing as it detected Emily's presence. Luke raised his baton, but Claire stopped him. No. It's listening. Emily stepped forward, unafraid. Please, she said, voice steady but soft. You don't have to do this. The creature emitted a low mechanical hum, a sound like 100 voices layered into one. It shifted, lowering its massive arm slowly. Claire held her breath. Emily continued. We're all that's left. We don't want to fight. We want to be free. The creature's eye flickered. Ranger growled, but stayed at Emily's side. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the air. A gunshot. Nolan's voice rang out from the control room above. Terminate all subjects. Extract immediately. The creature stiffened, growling a deep, inhuman growl. It turned toward the source of the command. Claire cursed. He's sending reinforcements. Explosions rocked the bunker as automated defense drones descended through open hatches, their cold metal arms aimed at the children. Claire grabbed Emily. We have to move. Now, Ranger barked, lunging at the nearest drone, tearing it apart. With ferocious precision. The children scattered, some sobbing, others running blindly. Claire pulled Emily toward the service tunnel. Luke, cover us! Luke swung his baton, smashing drones as they closed in. Emily whispered fiercely, I can hold it longer, but we must get the others. Claire's mind raced. The secret was out. The children, the experiments, the creature, everything was crumbling. But Nolan's voice echoed again. You won't leave with them. No one escapes. Claire glanced back, watching as the creature stepped forward, crushing debris underfoot. Moving with terrifying grace, she squared her shoulders. Ranger, lead the way. Together with the children following, they ran through the twisting tunnels, the weight of the past chasing them with every pounding step. Outside, the cliff loomed. The wind howled, carrying the scent of pine and rain. Claire looked at Emily, eyes shining despite exhaustion. "You did it. You woke them up." Emily nodded. "Now, it's our turn to fight." The bitter wind whipped across the cliff's edge. As Claire, Emily, Luke, Ranger, and the ragged group of children emerged from the dense forest. Behind them, the bunker's cold concrete walls disappeared into the shadows, its horrors buried beneath layers of secrecy. But the nightmare was far from over. The distant wail of sirens cut through the night, growing louder with every second. Police cruisers and emergency vehicles converged on the area, their flashing lights painting the trees blood red and icy blue. Claire's heart pounded. "We have to get these kids to safety. Find people who can help, away from Nolan and his lies." Emily clutched Claire's hand tightly. "They'll come for us." "They already are," Luke said grimly. "Nolan has the town's full force ready, and they won't stop until every secret is buried." Ranger growled low, ears pinned back, sensing danger. Suddenly headlights flooded the clearing, and the sheriff's voice boomed from a megaphone. "This is Sheriff Nolan. Lay down your weapons and surrender. You're endangering lives." Claire stepped forward, raising her hands but holding firm. "We're not surrendering, not after what you've done." Nolan's silhouette appeared against the glare of the headlights. A man older than Claire remembered, his face cold, eyes sharp as broken glass. "You don't understand what you're risking," he shouted. "This town needs order, not chaos. These children experiments, they're dangerous." Emily stepped beside Claire. Her glowing eyes met Nolan's gaze unflinchingly. "They're children, not weapons, not monsters," Nolan sneered. "And what about the creature? The thing? Beneath this town? It's a threat to everyone." Before Claire could respond, a low, earth-shaking roar rolled over the cliff. From the forest behind, the massive black creature emerged, moving with deliberate strength, its glowing eyes scanning the crowd. The police froze. Ranger growled protectively, growling at the creature's advance. Claire realized then, this creature was not a mindless machine. It was Emily's guardian. It had awakened to protect them. Nolan raised his weapon. "Fire!" But Claire yelled, "No!" In that split second, Emily reached out, her glowing hand connecting with the creature's armored chest. A pulse of blue light shot through the air, quieting the creature instantly. She turned to the crowd. "This ends now." Claire stepped forward, voice ringing with resolve. "We demand truth. The town needs to know what happened here, who lied, who was hurt. We want justice for the children." Nolan's face twisted in rage, but the people around him, officers, townsfolk, were watching, confused, shaken. Whispers spread. What was hidden? What was buried? Emily's glowing eyes softened as she said, "We will not be forgotten." The creature stepped aside, bowing its massive head as if pledging loyalty to the children. Claire took a deep breath. This town was built on silence, but silence kills. Today, we break that silence. The police lowered their weapons one by one. Nolan slumped, defeated, as officers moved to handcuff him. Emily looked at Claire, tears streaming down her glowing face. "Thank you," she whispered. Claire smiled gently. "We're just getting started." Behind them, the sun began to rise over the cliff, the first light in a long time promising hope. The town's darkest secret was out, and now the healing could begin.